So let's say I go on, any of you remember the TV show Shark Tank? Those of you remember the TV show Shark Tank. Somebody goes on, let's say I go on there and I say, hey, Sharks, I have this company called Work On Your Game and I'm asking for $100 million for 10% of my company. So if I ask for $100 million for 10% of my company, any of you who knows that's simple math, how much am I saying my company is worth? I'm asking for $100 million for 10% of my company on Shark Tank. How much am I saying my company's worth? Okay, the answer is $1 billion, folks. A billion, 1 billion with a B. If my company, 10% of it is worth 100 million, that means you have to multiply that number by 10 to get the actual value of the company, which would be $1 billion. So the answer is $1 billion. So if Mark Cuban says, all right, Dre, I will invest in your company, I will give you $100 million for 10% of your company. What does that mean? Number one, now Mark Cuban is an investor in my company. He has a say in what happens in my business because he just bought 10% of my company. He owns 10% of my company. Now, I might own the other 90, but he has a say because he just gave me $100 million. But I can go to Forbes magazine and say, hey, my name is Dre Baldwin. I own $1 billion company. Is that true? Is it true that I own $1 billion company? Can I go on Instagram and announce that I own $1 billion company and I am technically a billionaire? Can I go to Instagram and say I own $1 billion company after Mark Cuban gives me $100 million for 10% of my company? The answer is yes, I can. Yes, I can, because the company is valued at $1 billion. Yes, I have $1 billion company because Mark Cuban just gave me $100 million for 10%, which means Mark Cuban just valued my company at $1 billion because he gave me $100 million for 10%. But if he agrees that his $100 million is worth 10%, that means my company is worth $1 billion. That is the valuation of my company. And technically at that moment when Mark Cuban gives me that $100 million, I am a billionaire and I own $1 billion company. That is 100% how it works. When someone tells you that they own a $100 million company, that does not mean they have $100 million in the bank, or they have $100 million in their pocket, or they got a debit card with $100 million of spending power. So all of you need to understand the valuations of these companies are what we call paper assets. That does not mean they actually have the money in cash. So I just need to put that all in place so all of you understand when these companies say they're worth X amount, or even a person who says they're worth whatever, that doesn't mean, again, that they have the cash. Give me $1 billion. I don't have $1 billion.